Hey everybody, it is Dave from Gravity Wiz. This is our third wizarding workshop, and we are definitely exploring we're using Zoom for this assignment instead of Google Meet. So yeah, just figuring out a couple last minute things, but I think we're actually ready to go ahead and kick it off. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to dive in. All right, let's get going. All right. So yeah, as I was saying, this is our third wizarding workshop. These have been going pretty well. This is definitely our highest sign up one by like double. So I don't know if it's just the time of the year. Everyone's winding down for the holidays. They have a little bit more time to spend socializing, or if they're just growing in popularity. But either way, we're super excited to have everybody here today. Again, I did mention we're using Zoom. The video quality of Google Meet was just horrible. And one of the reasons that we want to do these is to make reusable resources. So we're giving Zoom a try, and we're hopeful from our testing, the Zoom video recordings are awesome. But because of that, because we're just kind of winging this with this new tech, please excuse any technical difficulties and do let us know if there's anything that's getting in the way of you enjoying the workshop. This document over here, this is the wizarding workshop. We use Notion here at Gravity Wiz, and we thought that it would be an awesome resource to share with everyone at the end. This is going to have everything that we talk about today, including answers to the questions. So this will be a great resource for you to revisit after the call or while you're watching the recording of the call later to squeeze every little bit of juice out of it that you can. So what are we going to cover today? Google Sheets. Didn't mean to click it, but Google Sheets, Populate Anything 2.0. We haven't really said too much about this, so really excited to talk a little bit about that. Clay will actually be, our CTO will be hosting this particular segment, and it's pretty incredible. And then lastly, we have our open Q&A with a ton of pre-submitted questions. So we're gonna get moving. All right, this is going to take a little bit, and we're trying to keep these to 45 minutes to make them super approachable for people and not take too much of your time. So let's jump into Google Sheets. You can already see I have it open over here, just teasing you. Google Sheets is just something that, we have needed it ourselves in the past, and it just is frustrating to have to rely on something like Zapier or any of the other automator tools to handle this. They could do some really powerful things, but it's just frustrating because it's so expensive. I think that's the biggest gripe for me is just, every time a Zap goes through, it's just, like cents, dollars. And I know that feeling of just like, there's gotta be a better way to do this. And we think that we have the answer, and we call it GP Google Sheets. It is part of the Gravity Perks suite. So if you're already a Gravity Perks user, depending on your license level, you already have immediate access. Even if you're a basic customer and you decide this is more important to you than the perk that you're currently using, you can always swap and use this perk instead. So let's dive in. First things first, we do our connection to Google a little differently than a lot of other shops. Security is a big deal for us, especially this is our first integration with potentially private information like this. So we wanted to play it extra safe on this and just kind of dip our toes into the water. And the best way we thought to do that was to keep all of the control with you. So the way that it works is you actually go to Google and you set up a project. And with that project, you basically define what APIs are accessible for that project. And then you generate keys, and then you're going to insert them here. We have some beefy docs that are going to walk you through the whole process. It is a little annoying to set up. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but once it's set up, you're definitely going to be on the most secure connection to Google that is possible. And I think that's going to be worth it in the long run. So let's go and check out our sample forms now that you can see we're already connected. So we have my magical form here, and in this form, and let me actually zoom in a couple of notches. Everyone's told me in the past that it can be hard to see. So on this screen, we just have a name field, an email field, and a favorite spell field. And in there, we just have a couple classic magic spells. And now it's time to look at the actual Google Sheet integration. So no sheets existing yet. Let's go ahead and add a new one. It defaults to whatever feed. You can see I've done quite a bit of testing with this. We're on feed 42. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and start with a new sheet. And I know I want to capture the entry ID. So I'll go ahead and do that and select entry ID. And then I know that I also want to capture the name. And actually, let's do the first name and last name separately. So we'll do the first name, last name, and then we'll also capture the email. We'll also go ahead and check this now. And this is the option to update and delete rows. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, as exactly what that does. But I just wanted you to know that it is checked as I save this feed. So this first save takes a minute because it's going to go in and create the new sheet and get all the columns set up and all the mappings configured. So that way, when you actually submit your entry, it'll work. So right now we can go and look at that sheet that we just created here. Again, these are the column mappings that we created: entry ID, first name, last name, email, entry ID, first name, last name, email. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and submit the form. So Dave Smith, dave@smith.com, and I am a Firebolt boy. So let's select that. We'll submit the form, and instantly you'll note that the entry has been added to my Google Sheet that's mapped. Pretty awesome. Let me catch up here. Okay, so that's it for the adding. Now I want to show you what this looks like in the actual entry. So what is captured with the entry on the Gravity form side of the connection. So you'll see down here, almost all of the data related to Google Sheets and a given entry is going to be in this Google Sheets meta box here. It'll tell you the sheet and when it was inserted. If you're updating, it will tell you when it was updated. And if there was an issue, or if this is a pre-existing entry, aka the entry existed before the feed was created, you'll see a process button here, which I will show you in a second. Of course, this just links right back to that sheet, so you always have access to that sheet whenever you need it. Jumping down, let's go and explore the update and delete rows option. So let's go ahead and edit this. So let's just say, like, okay, well, actually, my name is Smith and not Smith. Long story there. And I decided that I actually am a Thunderclap guy instead. So we update this. And we go back here. Uh-oh. Oh, it did make it. Oh, that's right. We're not tracking the spell. I was looking for Thunderclap, but you can see that the Smith has been updated in both locations automatically. That's pretty awesome. And then if we decide that we're going to trash this entry, you'll see that it is also moved to trash. Now let's say, like, oops, that was a mistake. Let's undo that. You'll see that it's back. Worth noting, if you do delete an entry and then re-add it like in that way, it will be appended to the end. In this case, we only had one, so it didn't actually, you didn't see that, it just put it back in the same location. But if we had multiple entries there, it would have moved it to the very end, just adds it back to the end of the line. And that is pretty much it for the updating and deleting rows. Now I want to just give you a quick crash course on mapping to an existing sheet. So we're just going to add another sheet, another feed to the same form. In this case, we're going to use Google Picker, and it's going to just make sure that we have access just to this specific file. The cool thing about this is that you can access like any file that you want. In this case, we're going to actually go and grab that same sheet that we just created. We're going to select it. You see it gets mapped automatically. This field is updated with all the values that we can map. So in this case, we're going to do entry ID, and then we'll just maybe we'll just get the email. And then we'll save this really quick. Actually, you know, I should have just gone and showed you conditional logic. So with conditional logic, we could say, hey, we actually only want to, you know what, let's do two things here to make this more functional. So we're going to capture the favorite spell. And we're going to say, hey, but we only want to capture these entries if the favorite spell is not empty. So AKA they've actually selected a spell. So now we'll save it. And we'll go to preview. And actually, before we do that, let me go back to the Google Sheets page. I'm going to disable this one, excuse me, the 42. So that way we're not getting multiple additions for every submission. So now we're going to do Jane Awesome. And Jane is not going to select a favorite spell for this first submission. And let's go look at our Google Sheet. And you see that Jane wasn't added. So Roger's going to come along. And Roger is going to select a spell. He's an Ice Blast guy. He's going to submit the form. And you're going to notice that because he added a spell, he is added correctly to the spreadsheet. That's pretty much all there is to it as far as using existing sheets. It works just like that. You saw that we could also add the new column. And we also went over conditional logic. Most of this stuff, again, it's not particularly shiny, but it just works and it's reliable. And that's what we aim to do here at Gravity Perks. Last bit here, I wanted to show you how it looked when you processed a feed for an existing sheet. For a pre-existing entry, excuse me. So let's go to entries and let's go to Dave Smith. And then let's go, you'll see that this is the new feed. The feed 42 has been deactivated, and so it doesn't show up here. But this new feed does, so we can actually add this according to this feed. And you'll see that it adds the details that we had captured for that as a new row. Again, this is not probably like a real world scenario where you're mapping different entries from the same form to the same sheet. But this is probably more useful when you have two separate forms and you want to map those same entries to the entries from both forms to the same sheet. But hopefully this is just for the sake of time and it doesn't add any confusion to the process. But yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And I already showed you there how it has it lets you know that it was inserted successfully on this page, and that's that. Okay, awesome. Man, I gotta say, when I write this out, it takes so long, and then I just flew through that so quickly. Are there any questions about how Google Sheets works, or anything that might be supported or not supported? All right. In that case, Clay, I will turn it over to you for a quick crash course on Populate Anything 2.0 and what's coming with that.
Hey everyone, as David said, I'm the CTO at Gravity Wiz. You probably see me in support, but it's my job to build as many perks as possible and add all the great functionality you enjoy. I'm gonna get sharing here. Let's see. All right, cool. So Populate Anything 2.0 is coming. This is another not so shiny update, but there are a lot of great changes behind the scenes, namely with performance more than anything. And then we've also made some improvements behind the scenes in the code just to make things more maintainable for us. Since it's our flagship perk, it can do so much, and we want to make sure that it remains as stable as possible and stands the test of time. And GPPA 2.0 enables that. So I have a few forms here that I'm going to show you. Actually, let me switch to not GPPA 2.0 really fast. And I have this test form here that's using value population. So I have inserted over 5,000 fake posts on this website, and this particular form is going to load the latest post. It's going to get the title, the ID, and the content. You can see here 3,000 plus results found. I did also add a snippet here that raises the query limit from 500 to 3,000. We've always had this query limit of 500 for performance, but you'll see with GPPA 2.0, you can really start to push the limit on this. All right, so I'm just triggering a request here, and you'll see that it loaded in a very reasonable time, 438 milliseconds. If I do a couple hard refreshes, it's still hovering around that 400 millisecond mark. But now with GPPA 2.0, I'll refresh again. And after a few refreshes, we're down to 82 milliseconds. So on this particular form, it's loading in a quarter of the time. Not much to show there, but performance is always a wonderful thing. I'm going to switch back to GPPA 1.0 again. I have another test form here with a bunch of posts and then field value objects set up. So just as a reminder on field value objects, these allow you to take whatever gets selected in a choice-based field and then pull data out of that selected object. So you'll see here that I have post ID, post title, date, and so on. Let's see, sorry. I'll do a refresh here. And this loaded in 4.28 seconds, just because this is an insane amount of choices. There's a lot of HTML here to load. Not sure if you can see all these choices or not, but there's a lot. And then if I switch the Chrome DevTools to show AJAX requests, or XHRs, as the new people say, I'll go ahead and select sample page. This is loading in about 700 milliseconds. I'll select another. 559. You get the idea. But now I'll switch to GPPA 2.0 and I'll go ahead and select a new choice. Let's do another. And it's down by quite a significant amount. The choice-based fields don't have as big of a performance improvement as the value population does, but depending on the form, you're going to see performance improvements. But fortunately, we have a trick in our pocket for further improving the performance of choices to a pretty insane level. So we have a new perk coming out called GP Advanced Select. It's going to pair extremely well with Populate Anything 2.0. And what Advanced Select does is it's going to put the select, it's going to render it with a new library. And so by default, with Gravity Forms, you have the option to set a select to have, let's see here, enhanced user interface. And while it's great, there are certainly some limitations with the library that they bundle by default, and by they, I mean Gravity Forms. The library that they use is called Chosen. We've selected a new one called Tom Select for a variety of reasons, but it allows some really cool functionality like deferring the loading of these choices, filtering with server-side requests, and best of all, it has accessibility improvements. By default, Gravity Forms will actually warn about the accessibility issues with enhanced user interface, but that is just not the case with Advanced Select. So right now, it's just a simple checkbox to enable that under perks. We have a few more features up our sleeve for Advanced Select. Those aren't quite in here yet. But if I go over here and go ahead and load this, switch to the doc view, we'll see that this is now loading in 378 milliseconds. So that's quite a bit faster than 4 seconds if I go over to this form. And that's all thanks to deferring the choices getting loaded. So you'll see as soon as I click on this, you'll get a spinner, and there it goes. It just rendered out all these choices. What's cool is there's infinite scrolling as well. So I just scroll to the bottom and it loaded, I think, 2,000 more choices. And then once you get to the bottom, of course, it'll say no more results. I can go ahead and select a post here, and then it gets loaded in. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Again, not super shiny, but it'll improve the user experience of your form, accessibility, and of course, speed. Real quick on Advanced Select. So the default behavior is actually not set up to enable lazy loading if you don't have a search set up or a search set up. I'll show you that here shortly. So I added this snippet. We're going to put it in the snippet library, but this just forced this to load the choices deferred. for the sake of demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and disable this snippet now, and then go back to the advanced select form. And this is really cool. So what I'm going to do is add a new filter group and make it so I can search by the post title. I'll do contains. And then there's this new special value that you'll get if you have advanced select enabled called advanced select search value. Go ahead and select that. Save. Refresh this form. And now you notice I clicked in and focused. I should probably update this placeholder to say start typing to find a post. But as soon as I enter in 2 characters, it'll start loading it. And that just loaded incredibly quickly because we just filtered down those 5,000 posts to look for the post title. So now I can select that. And actually, let me show you something. I'm going to add a new field and set it as required. And now if I select hello world and then submit and get a validation error, it immediately loaded in the selected choice still, in fact, with no request to the database. So it still works with validation, all the good GPPA-ness that you're used to, whether it's exporting, just showing the correct choice label, it still works with advanced select. As a teaser on what else is to come in advanced select, you'll get value out of it even if you're not using it with Populate Anything. The first integration that we're planning is with JetSloth's image choices. We're really excited for that and the ability to really spice up your drop downs and add, avatars for users or featured post images, you name it. But that's a quick demo of GPPA 2.0 and advanced select.
Awesome. Thank you, Clay. That was well done. Another kind of quick thought about GPPA 2.0 is that we're actually going to be releasing it in a fairly unique way. Rather than kind of forcing it out, doing like a long beta, so that I don't know what everyone's experience is like with betas, but we have found over a decade of trial and error that a lot of people just don't adopt betas. So if you release a beta, getting people to actually try the beta is very difficult. So what we're going to do instead of releasing a beta is we're going to essentially feature freeze whatever the last version of Populate Anything is before this 2.0 version. And then we're going to just start pushing out 2.0 to new customers. So all new customers will be getting 2.0. And then existing customers who are on a previous version, they will have the option to upgrade, but it won't be like a forced requirement. We'll still continue supporting that for a period of time. Obviously, if you need to take advantage of a new feature like advanced select, then that would be a forced upgrade scenario. But it should be fully backwards compatible. No issues like that. Any issues? We have Clay, how many tests do we have for automated tests do we have for Populate Anything?
I think it's in at 200.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely our most well-tested plugin. But still, it's also the plugin that people use in the most creative ways. And so because of that, yeah, we want to give existing customers who are using it in those very creative ways a lot of runway to upgrade when they're most comfortable and test when they actually have the time. But also put a little pressure there to say like, hey, we are moving forward. We don't want you to get left behind. But we'll be writing a whole blog post about that when we release it. Release date, a wizard can't reveal all of their secrets, but very soon. It's code complete. It's just a timing thing now. We're just trying to find the right time to start that process. Awesome. Any questions about GPPA 2.0 or even advanced select before we move on to open Q&A? Okay. In that case, I will share my screen again and we'll go through some of these questions. All right, so, you know what? I forgot to tell you guys something. You might have been looking at these images and thinking, those are very curious graphics. So this is actually just a little bit of a teaser about a plugin that we're going to be dropping very soon, like any day now. Just an MVP plugin that has to do with AI that we just want to integrate with. And so we used AI to generate these images. And I got to tell you, it was a genuine pleasure working with this as I fed it prompts and it would just generate images. I don't know if it making me laugh is a good thing or not if you're trying to get AI generated images, but I definitely enjoyed it. I hope that you guys got some pleasure out of those as well. So, open Q&A. We, first of all, did not answer every question. I was shocked by how many questions we got this time. Again, in previous workshops, we've gotten maybe 10 questions at the most. I think we had like somewhere in the range of like 20 questions this time. I don't think we're going to have time to answer all of them, but I have done my best to give concise answers to most of these. So let's jump in. Maury, I just went with first names here just in case anyone didn't want their last name published here. But Maury, where can I watch this session? You can read the full quote there, but I've just kind of summarized it there. Yeah, we basically, again, as I mentioned, this is why we switched to Zoom. We'll share it in the next week's weekly newsletter. So just keep an eye out for that and it will be there. Tamet and Bryce both had the same question, which I've summarized as essentially how's Google Sheets coming? Well, it's given that you attended this workshop, I think that you know the answer to that now. Again, we're hoping to have it in your hands next week. Kenny asked about Populate Anything preview results. This one I'm actually going to read. Why are my result previews when using Populate Anything often blank, despite it stating there are a number of entries? So this is a hard one to answer definitively without knowing more details, but my gut is that, Kenny, you might be filtering by a form field. If you are, then Populate Anything can't show you results in the form editor because it is contingent on the value of the field that you're filtering by, which is only available on the front end when the form is rendered. If any other scenario is happening, if you're not filtering by a form field, then drop us a line, Kenny, and we'll be happy to help. We have a link right there to support. Chris, oh, sorry, bud. Everyone look away. No one knows your last name. Dynamic limits with limit submissions. So I summarized this one to basically, can limit submissions limits be set dynamically based on post meta? So kind of expanding on this use case that Chris described was, what if you have a post for an event or a raffle and you only want to allow so many people to join or so many signups? So there's actually a couple approaches to do this with Gravity Perks, like 9 ways to skin a cat kind of deal. In this case, because of the way that Chris, you described this issue, I actually think that limit submissions was a good fit. And the only thing that you need here is just this snippet right here. And with this snippet, you can target a specific form and then a specific feed, and then you can set that that limit dynamically. In this case, this is setting a static limit dynamically, but you could fetch this from the current post that the form is being rendered on with just like a G form or a get post meta and then the post ID and then the data. If you're looking for some help with that, and you're a pro customer, then please do reach out to us support. This is like the kind of minor customizations that we love to help out with. It'd be super easy for us to help. All right. Jonathan asked about our Gravity Forms hook reference. Basically, how up to date is it? To what version does it apply? Couldn't tell you exactly what version we last, kind of looked at this with, but it is up to date. Note, hook orders have changed, even up to the latest version of Gravity Forms. There are some hooks that we have not added semi-deliberately, just because they're kind of niche, and we didn't want this to be one of those things that got lost, like where there's so much information here that the important information gets lost in the weeds, if you will. But if there's anything that you specifically are saying like, hey, I would love more clarity on this, or I find this confusing, that kind of feedback we'd be super open to and would love to update this accordingly. For everyone else, if you're not familiar with our Gravity Forms hook reference, we put a lot of effort into this thing. And especially if you're doing any kind of customization with Gravity Forms involving code or hooks in this case, this gives you a much deeper insight into how Gravity Forms works. It's kind of like the resource that I wish I had. Well, let's be fair, I did have it because I was working with Alex, the original creator of Gravity Forms, as I learned Gravity Forms. So he was I've tried to codify all of Alex's knowledge here in this doc for you. But it's super useful. You can see we have these digging deeper sections, and these sections just provide, again, that like, okay, here's like the how, and this is a little bit more, oh, forgot, there you go. And here's a little bit more about the why of how this works. So that way you can kind of anticipate possible issues as you're using these filters and hooks, or actions and filters. Other thing worth noting on this is that you can like toggle it down to just filters if you're just looking for like, hey, I need to find the right filter at this specific part of the process. And it also allows you to toggle this to actions. So you can see just actions at specific parts. Additionally, it goes through a couple different flows here. This is the initial form render, like the form has not been submitted. It's just loading for the first time. And then there's this where the form is being re-rendered because there was a validation error. And then the last one was what happens when the form is actually submitted successfully. In each of these cases, you're going to see a lot of the same hooks running, but then you'll also notice there's like some key differences. So yeah, just a really awesome resource. I'd love for everyone to go and check it out. And if you have any questions, let us know. Moving on to Adam. You asked a question about organizing forms. Basically, does the Gravity Wiz team have a list of best practices for workflow and organization when creating Gravity Forms? So I've kind of focused on the organizational side of this because I'm not 100% sure what you meant about workflow. But I will admit, we use Gravity Forms a lot internally for a variety of things, even for our offboarding form for our e-commerce platform. But we don't have that many forms, honestly. I think maybe a few dozen. So we haven't really run into an issue where we need better organization. Although I will say that we're using it more and more recently, and so we might be there soon. I did want to give a shout out to Joshua Vandekar, the developer behind Gravity Hopper. He has an awesome solution for organizing forms if you want to put them into folders based on, kind of like with the category, for example. Our Wizarding Workshop registration forms, each one's a unique form that we just duplicate from the last one. And so that would be an awesome use for us where we just put, hey, these are all the workshop forms, or even workshop sign-up forms, workshop feedback forms, etc. So definitely check this out. Again, the link is right here in this document, and we'll be sharing this document with you after the call. Deb asked a great question about legacy markup. It's kind of cool just to see that people are still kind of in this boat where they're using legacy markup. It's hard to know, we're always on kind of like the bleeding edge of Gravity Forms, so it's hard to know where the real world use cases are. So this was kind of just good to know. But Deb asked, basically, can you explain the best practices on how to address complicated forms that were built prior to GF 2.5? Does she need to rebuild these or just simply test again after disabling the legacy markup? I would definitely recommend just disabling the legacy markup. They did a great job with backwards compatibility. I do think that the issues, if you encounter any issues, they're most likely going to be visual issues and not functional issues. With Gravity Perks specifically, we made sure that we were fully compatible with 2.4, but then when 2.5 came out, we made sure that we were compatible with 2.5 while still being compatible with 2.4. So I don't expect you'll have any Gravity Perks specific issues. As always, if you do, reach out to support and we'll get it taken care of very quickly. The other thing I would just recommend there is Gravity Forms has no stated plans on removing support for legacy markup. In fact, they have a whole document here kind of talking about their stance on it and what to expect. The only kind of limitation with legacy markup is that it's kind of like the same limitation I was just talking about with Populate Anything 2.0. New features, we're not going to go and make them retroactively work with older versions of Gravity Forms. So you do want to upgrade at some point, but the pressure is somewhat light here. Gravity Forms has always been super committed to backwards compatibility, so I don't expect that you're going to have any pressing timeline. So I would just take a couple forms a week, maybe even just set an hour aside a week and just start that process. I think that it will be pretty pretty light for you. I think most of your forms will just convert without any issue. All right. Moving on to Bob, asked about an Airtable integration. Bob, I know you're a big Airtable user. You've asked about this before. Unfortunately, nothing to report. I think the demand is there, but we just don't know for sure if there's enough Gravity Forms users using Airtable or enough Airtable users wanting to use Gravity Forms. We also just admittedly have a plate full of other awesome projects that have already kind of been vetted. So that's not to say that we're not going to ever do it. We just kind of wait. Our customers really dictate our roadmap in a big way here at Gravity Wiz, and we just have not heard that clamor for this. So it's been difficult to kind of make it jump the queue ahead of these other projects that we are hearing a lot of feedback for. With all that said, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say on Airtable, we've certainly kicked around that idea. With GP Google Sheets, we've kind of set a precedence for a UI of what it would look like to sync with a third party, I guess. I don't know what the right term for it is, but Airtable obviously shares similarities with Google Sheets. We certainly see a world where we could abstract the programming interfaces of GP Google Sheets and be able to create new perks in the future for Airtable or Notion, you name it.
Yeah.
But no immediate plans. The
Yeah.
possibilities there.
I did want to point out that there is a third-party plugin. I don't know if anyone has used it. If anyone's used it, please post in chat and let Bob know if it's worth using or not. Yeah, I have not personally used it, so I can't recommend it, but I would love I would love to hear people's experiences with it so that we can possibly recommend it in the future. Heather asked about using multiple child forms in the same parent. Yeah, this is supported. It's actually one of the cooler features of nested forms. It's a great way if you're collecting kind of like the same type of data, but in a different context, but within the same form. It should work just fine. I'm trying to think if there's any kind of gotchas there, but I really can't think of any off the bat. Yeah, if you run into any issues, let me know, but I know this is a well-used scenario for nested forms, so I don't expect any issues. Moving on to Rob, asked about advanced conditional logic. I posted the whole response here, but I'm just going to summarize it and say that basically there are some plugins that provide some version of advanced conditional logic that is specific to their plugin. Populate Anything, for example, has the support for and or groups. I'm trying to think if I actually have, I think I probably do, just to kind of help everyone make sure that we're all on the same page. So if we do a drop down here and we populate choices dynamically, we can say, let's populate posts, and we'll add a filter group here. We'll say, hey, wherever the author is the current user ID and the parent post is, we'll say 1. And then you can actually do an or group as well. Or if the author is, again, we'll say the same parent or same, the current user, but maybe a different parent post is. So this is just an example of these are and conditions. Both of these must match in order for that filter to apply. And then this is an or condition, meaning that both of these must apply, but either of these groups of conditions must be true. So there is this doesn't basically apply though to Gravity Forms conditional logic. So let's go and add another field here so we can look at that really quick. So is this not zoomed in? Or is it? I can't even tell you. Oh, it's not. Okay. I lost my zoom there. I lost my focus on the zoom. If we're looking at the conditional logic there, you can see, hey, if drop down A is, something's funky there. That's not right. But you get the idea. You can only do and conditions or conditions. So that means show if any of those are true, all of those would be or conditions. If all of these are true, all of those would be and conditions. If this and this and this, then it's true. Or if this or this is true, then it's true. So Rob is asking, how can we get this better supported in Gravity Forms? And he also shared there was a third-party plugin out there that we actually ended up writing. We wrote the original kind of MVP code snippet for that. I did as a freelance project like a long time ago, maybe like 7 years ago. But I considered making it a perk, but there was two factors. One is conditional logic is it's very tricky to support because there's so many things that can go wrong. And I do believe that Gravity Forms is conditional logic. It's just not at a good place to support very complex conditions, given the fact that it has to like loop through its own logic to reapply it. And the second issue is that Gravity Forms themselves have a stated desire to make this improvement. So it's very demotivating for us to want to tackle that if the mothership is saying, hey, we got this, we're going to fix it. So obviously it's been a long time. I think the best way for us to make this happen is just for everybody who wants this and is on this call right now, go click this link and vote. Tell them that it's critical that we get this feature. Because it's so powerful. It's so powerful. I understand it. If we had this, it could ultimately make forms more performant. And I think a part of this, and probably one of the reasons it's been a slow move on their part, is that the underlying conditional logic infrastructure will probably be updated as part of this. But again, if enough customers say this is a critical feature request, they will absolutely get this added. So yeah, everyone go and hit that, smash that critical button. All right. Adam asked about exporting conditional pricing rules. We have looked into this before. This is also, sorry, just to be clear, this is part of our conditional pricing perk. Conditional pricing is super helpful as a way to create complex conditional rules around your product field pricing. I'm trying to think of the best way to, oh, that was definitely not it. It's docs. There we go. Conditional pricing. So yeah, conditional pricing, it lets you just create like very complex conditional logic rules. I'm sure we have a good screenshot here. These are some simple ideas here, but you can do bulk pricing, you can do early bird pricing, all sorts of ways that you can tweak the price. And you can, again, you can do it in bulk, which is nice. The rules themselves can be done in bulk via our importer feature. The only issue right now is that it doesn't have an exporting feature. So if you've started, most customers that do the bulk pricing, they start with a spreadsheet and then import the spreadsheet into conditional pricing, which is supported. But then then they just make all their changes in the spreadsheet and then re-import. And there's like a bunch of tools with the importer to allow you to override those existing rules. But there's no way to export. So if you start in the UI and you make a bunch of rules and then you want to export those rules so then you can edit them in the future in the spreadsheet, there's no way to do that right now. There's a decent bit of demand for this. So we're like right on the cusp of prioritizing this. If anyone else needs this, please let us know. That would definitely be super motivational in getting this moved up on the roadmap. All right, last of the pre-submitted questions and 1 minute left, talk about timing. Jason asked, essentially, I want a way to figure out which forms are using Gravity perks. Yeah, we have seen a lot more demand for this. I thought maybe like once a year for the first 10 years of Gravity perks. And then this year, the 10th year of Gravity perks, we're seeing this requested at least once a month. So that is definitely a big shift. It's not quite enough to justify the work involved, but if that demand continues, I definitely can imagine adding something like this to Gravity perks itself, where it will keep track of all the perks that you have, all the forms that have a given perk installed. One of the big benefits of this would actually be when you update a perk, you could know exactly which forms to go and test. So going back to like Deb's question, like, oh man, I just updated this perk. You know, hers was specific to Gravity, like the legacy markup, but it's the same idea, like which perks impact which forms, totally understand the pain point. And it's something that we are definitely looking forward to address. Again, demand is the best way to get that prioritized.
Real quick on that one, Gravity Hopper has a form integrity module that can track what plugins are required in a form. I don't think it supports every perk, but it supports a lot of perks, and it does like per field checks. You can kind of see how they do the type of check on that page that David has pulled up. You'll see a whole section for Gravity Wiz. It's pretty cool to see. Surprisingly, Populate Anything isn't on there, but a good number of other perks are. And I haven't used it myself, but it does look like, based off the docs on the sidebar, I didn't see any screenshots, but you can filter forms by plugins, which sounds pretty useful.
Oh, that is huge. I don't even think I even knew that. Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, hey, everybody, I'm sorry that we don't have any time for open questions. I'm just super curious if there was, Cole, are there any big questions that I should answer before we exit? And if every one of you got to get going, go ahead, head out. We're just going to hang out for just a couple more minutes and see if there's any big questions worth answering.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any large pressing questions here. I'm seeing a lot of positive feedback though.
Okay, awesome. Well then, yeah, we'll try to do these as frequently as we can. I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. We'll make this recording available again, no later than next week. We might even send it to, if you submit the survey, we could probably just include it in the response to the survey to you personally. So just a little motivation to give us your feedback. Cool. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. These are a blast for us, and I love having you here. Take it easy.